Hey everyone, Zion over here from Nintendo Life, and we hope that you're ready to get spooked silly because today we're sharing with you our review of Alien Isolation on the Nintendo Switch. This review was originally written by PJ O'Reilly for NintendoLife.com, but was reworked into this video by me. Straight off the back of a fantastic port of Grid Autosport on Switch, Feral Interactive is back with Creative Assembly's survival horror masterpiece, Alien Isolation. The game's been out since about 2014 and has received rave reviews on other platforms. So the first thing you'll probably want to know is, have they actually managed to squeeze the entirety of this monstrous space-based terror onto Nintendo's console in fine working order? Thankfully, yes. Why, yes, they have. Alien Isolation is a genuinely impressive showing from Feral that runs at a flawless 30fps 720p in handheld and 1080p 30fps with some minor stuttering in docked mode, with graphics that seem to sit somewhere in between the PS3 and PS4 versions of the game. There's been the expected downgrade of some textures here and there, but all of the incredible lighting and volumetric effects have made it to the Switch, so the terrifying atmosphere remains 100% intact. Add in some beautifully implemented motion controls for aiming weapons and using your motion tracker, HD rumble, and all of the previously released DLC content, and this is more than we really could have hoped for in terms of a Switch port. Creative Assembly created one of the greatest horror games of all time with this one. Every facet of Alien Isolation is superbly detailed, and it's this slavish attention to detail that sees it successfully transfer the fundamental spirit of Ridley Scott's 1979 masterpiece to video game form for the very first time. You won't find any Colonial Marines hiccups here. This is cold, hard horror, an ordeal to suffer through. You'll sink so far back into your seat while trying to outsmart the galaxy's most ruthless and efficient killer, a xenomorph. The superb 1970s sci-fi stylings from the classic movie are also intact here. It's all leather-clad walls, swishing automated doors, CRT screens, smoke, and flickering light-filled corridors, as well as the constant plinking and plonking of retro-futuristic technology. It's an alien theme park, and you just happen to be thrown in on the day a real-life xenomorph has been let loose. Now, the alien itself really is a terrifying creation, propelled by a dynamic AI that, outside of a handful of scripted sequences, uses its very own set of heightened senses to stalk you through the twisted metal guts of the Sevastopol Station. This monster can hear every move you make, and the smallest of mistakes will see you end up dragged into an air shaft, pulled by your ankles from a vent, or ripped to pieces where you stand by its multi-jawed mouth. Creative Assembly refers to the alien's AI as psychopathic serendipity, by which it means this xenomorph always finds itself in the right place at the right time, ready to strike the moment you give it a reason. It's absolutely unnerving, and the studio has managed to draw it out over the course of the game without it ever really growing old. A combination of well-paced missions and a few variations to the gameplay over the course of proceedings keep things fresh. Indeed, there's a period mid-game where the primary threat switches from alien to android before the xenomorph returns for the final third. It helps give you a break and let you blow off some steam before the tension gets ratcheted right back up for the home stretch. Creative Assembly has created an amazing foe here, but let's not forget the other star of this show, Sevastopol Station itself. Sevastopol is where the majority of the action in Alien Isolation takes place, and is easily as important of a character here as the central protagonist, Amanda Ripley, or even the xenomorph itself. It's a great big hulking metal maze, a dizzying mismatch of twisting smoke-filled corridors, busted up rooms, broken circuitry, jammed doors and vents, and oh, so many vents. There's so much attention to detail in how Sevastopol has been brought to life, with amazingly atmospheric graphics and absolutely top-notch sound design. From the slicing metallic sound of one of those vents as it opens itself to let you in, to the messages relayed across the station's warped PA system. And those great big lens-flared vistas you're occasionally treated to are a nice break from the tension of sneaking your way through corridor after corridor, fixing and patching and hiding and trembling in absolute fear. Everything about how Alien Isolation is designed serves to ground you entirely in this superbly crafted world. Amanda moves slowly and methodically, with a real feeling of weight to her movements and interactions. The way in which she opens doors or manipulates machinery, or how she fires up her ion torch and maneuvers its molten flow as it cuts ever so slowly through sheet metal to open up locked passageways and air shafts. The way in which you can focus her eyes on the motion tracker, blurring everything in the background, or hit the left trigger to retrain your eyes on what's down the corridor instead, makes you feel completely involved and consumed in your environment. You also need to be careful as quick movements are noisy and dangerous, and the time you spend doing any of these things can see you leave yourself exposed just long enough to call it game over, man. Game over. Adding further to all of this is the ramshackle nature of the various noisemakers, smoke bombs, EMP grenades, pipe bombs, and Molotov cocktails you'll use to keep the xenomorph at bay. The crafting system here is simple, but it feels perfectly at home in the circumstances, with Amanda needing to scrap together whatever components she can find in order to give herself the slimmest of fighting chances, using this handful of distractions in order to temporarily throw the alien off her scent. You've never truly known actual sweaty-palmed fear until you've attempted to sneak past the back of a towering, sleek black death machine as it's turned momentarily to investigate the squeaking and squealing of one of your Frankenstein toys. There really is no fear like it. Of course, as we slightly touched on earlier, there's not just an alien to worry about. Sevastopol is home to Seegson Synthetics' delightful Working Joe cyborgs. These guys are far from top-of-the-range AI, and their horrible gray rubber faces and glowing orange eyes may never be as convincing as humans, but they do a fantastic line in killing anything that moves. They're powerful, smart enemies who will spot you just as quickly as any xenomorph, and aren't shy about pummeling your fragile head into the side of a wall or door. There are groups of human survivors patrolling the space station as well, desperate ragtag gangs terrified and holed up in various areas. And you can choose to engage them or sneak around them using one of these small arsenals of guns you've picked up on your travels to take them down. However, if you do go the route of using lead pesticides, you'll immediately alert a certain apex predator, a xenomorph, to your exact coordinates. You could also perhaps toss a noisemaker in their direction, climb into a vent, and sit it out in the darkness and listen as they violently get torn to pieces by Her Highness. Over the course of your time on Sevastopol, you do pick up quite a number of weapons, from a delightfully loud revolver and shotgun, which we fired off once and never again, to a quieter but still extremely effective bolt gun, perfect for putting a hole right through the milky head of a Working Joe. There's also that iconic flamethrower, which is easily the most useful of the traditional weapons at your disposal. A quick blast from this will send the xenomorph scuttling off up an air shaft, giving you a few moments to get yourself hidden. And it's also quite handy at melting those cyborgs down in a pinch. If there is a weak point in all of this horror goodness, it's most certainly the story. Alien Isolation's setup is simple, and somewhat predictable for the most part. We won't spoil any of it here, however, this really is a game that sees you running fetch and repair quests more than anything else. There's always some barrier blocking your way, some system that needs rebooting, or a vital piece of machinery in need of manipulation as you attempt to make your way off the ship to safety. You could also argue that it could have done with a slight bit of trimming towards the end. There's maybe just one too many drawn-out encounters, and just as you start to think you finally managed to make it out, the alien returns for a little bit more. However, at the same time, the drawn-out nature of encounters also serves to make the whole ordeal all the more fittingly dramatic. It's a nerve-shredding ordeal, and by the time you're done, you'll feel like you just survived an actual encounter with a real-life Internecivus raptus. As we mentioned already, Feral Interactive has done an excellent job with this Switch port. Besides those very minor hiccups with regards to the frame rate in docked mode, some slightly longer loading times between levels, and a little bit of waiting for doors to open here and there as parts of the station loading in sneakily behind them, this version of Alien Isolation is closely in line with the PS4 edition of the game. It also easily surpasses the somewhat blurred nature of the original PS3 release, and with those delightful motion controls, HD rumble, and all the DLC thrown in to boost the overall package, this is a stellar addition to the Switch's library. Alien Isolation is a survival horror masterpiece, and straight up one of the best horror video games ever released. It's a nerve-wracking affair, a slow, methodical game of cat and mouse against a brilliantly clever recreation of one of cinema's most infamous killers. But if you're up to the task, you'll find one of the most satisfying gameplay experiences in the genre, and a brilliant and beautiful homage to one of the greatest sci-fi movies of all time. The addition of excellent motion controls and inclusion of all previously released DLC only go to sweeten the deal. This is an essential title for fans of the survival horror genre. We here at Nintendo Life give Alien Isolation on the Nintendo Switch a 9 out of 10. If you'd like to read our full written review, you can find that along with more information on Alien Isolation over at nintendolife.com.